differences, we'll have arguments, we'll never be able to get together. But if we keep our religion at home, keep our religion in the closet, keep our religion between ourselves and our God, but when we come out here, we have a fight that's common to all of us against the enemy who is common to all of us. The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that the black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own community. The time when white people can come in our community and get us to vote for them so that they can be our political leaders and tell us what to do and what not to do is long gone. By the same token, the time when that same white man, knowing that your eyes are too far open, can send another Negro into the community, get you and me to support him so he can use him to lead us astray, those days are long gone.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. Deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. From those who are trying to write an American story that will deny the right for women to make our own decisions about our bodies. Houston, we are grabbing back the pen.
Say it again. Say something else. Oh, say something else. Say
What
something
you
else.
do and do this thing again.
The political philosophy of black nationalism only means that if you and I are going to live in a black community, and that's where we're going to live, because as soon as you move into one of their, as soon as you move out of the black community into their community, it's mixed for a period of time, but they are gone, and you're right there all by yourself again. We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce. We must know what part politics play in our lives. And until we become politically mature, we will always be misled, led astray, or deceived or maneuvered into supporting someone politically who doesn't have the good of our community at heart. So the political philosophy of black nationalism only means that we will have to carry on a program, a political program of re-education to open our people's eyes, make us become more politically conscious, politically mature. And then we will, whenever we get ready to cast our ballot, that ballot will be cast for a man of the community who has the good of the community at heart. And
this sort of connects to the whole myth of America being the land of opportunity. And, you know, they teach everyone, if you work hard, then you'll get up and you'll succeed and you'll rise up the ranks and so on. But America has just about the worst of any so-called developed country. It has just about the worst ranking in terms of actual upward mobility for any so-called developed country in the OECD. I think it's something like 93% of Americans who are born in the lowest 20% income bracket, 93% of them will never get out. Only 7% will ever rise to the upper levels of the income bracket. Only 7%. 93% of Americans who are born poor will stay poor for the rest of their lives. That's your land of opportunity. That's the great motivation that they give you. They give you this lottery mindset to keep you basically pacified and accepting a very unequal and a system that's not only unequal, but where that inequality is fortified and maintained and preserved very deliberately. The government are public servants and so forth, But we all know that that's not the case. This isn't the way that they actually operate. They talk about morals that they have never actually incorporated, that they've never integrated, that they've never absorbed, that they've never understood. They have always approached morals and values and principles and so on as just things that you talk about to cover up doing all of the immoral, unprincipled things that you do. They just use any talk about morality, any talk about principles and values as a camouflage for doing all sorts of dastardly, villainous things. But
What is 20th? What do you call second-class citizenship? Why, that's colonization. Second-class citizenship is nothing but 20th century slavery. How are you going to tell me you're a second-class citizen? They don't have second-class citizenship in any other government on this earth. They just have slaves and people who are free. Well, this country is a hypocrite. They try and make you think they set you free by calling you a second-class citizen. No, you're nothing but a 20th century slave.
because, as an American, we grew up with this constant drumbeat of telling us about what a great country America is because it's so free and because we have all this freedom and so forth. This is the ultimate example of a misconception on so many levels. It's not easy to know where to start because there's so many layers to the misconception. America is the land of the free. It's completely meaningless. I mean, ask an American, what do you even mean? What do you mean by freedom? What do you mean by the freedom that you have that other people don't have? It's like saying America is the best country because we have the color green. It doesn't make any sense. It's undefined, okay, you may have healthcare in your country, you may have efficient public transportation in your country, but at least in America, we have the color green. It makes no sense. It's really, really meaningless. The average American citizen has less freedom than any random villager in Indonesia or in Ghana or in any other part of the global South. What freedom are you even talking about? I mean, you're living, most Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, as we've been talking about when we were talking about the economy, and you can't separate the economy and the economic standard of living and quality of life of the people. You can't separate that from their freedom. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. For most Americans, if they miss even one paycheck, they're going to be thrown out onto the street. That's the reality. You don't have just one master in America in terms of your slavery. We were talking about debt slavery, wage slavery, and so on. Your employer is your master. Your student loan officer is your master. Your landlord is your master. The credit card bureau is your master. Your mortgage loan officer is your master. Your insurance adjuster, your HMO, the IRS, your credit card company, they're all your masters. In America, you're a slave with many masters. And they all have their chains on you, and they all have their own lash that they can use on your back. So what freedom do you have? I mean, I think I mentioned in the video that you have more laws. I don't know if it was this video or another video. You have more laws in America and more regulations in America than any other country in the world. The average American's daily life is governed or influenced or restricted or in one way or another determined literally by tens of thousands of laws and regulations. Upwards of 50,000 to 100,000 rules at the municipal level, the state level, the federal level, not to mention the rules in your own company that you work for, whatever rules that your employer imposes upon you. This is like scaffolding around the daily routine and activities of the American people, of any average American citizen. And most of these rules actually only exist, no matter what they tell you. They'll tell you that these rules all exist to make the society better and to protect you and to make you safe and so on. But the truth of the matter is, and any American who's listening knows this to be true by your own experience, that these rules only exist for the purpose of generating revenue for the enforcing body of those rules through the imposition of fines and fees and so forth. That's the real purpose.
Most bee jobs are small ones, but bees know that every small job, if it's done well, means a lot. But choose carefully, because you'll stay in the job that you pick for the rest of your life.
The same job for the rest of your life? I didn't know that.
What's the difference? Huh?
And you'll be happy to know that bees as a species haven't had one day off in 27 million years. Whew.
So you'll just work us to death?
We'll sure try.
Part of what's wrong with you. You do too much singing. Today it's time to stop singing and start swinging.
Security and efficiency or what have you. It's just to make money off of you. And you have no say in America, in your great democratic country. You have no say in how any of that money is spent. Any of that money that they collect from you, that they oblige you to pay, you have no say in how any of that money is spent. You don't decide what anyone who collects that money, you have no say in what they do with that money. So I'm asking, what freedom do you have? What freedom do you have that's so special and so unique? None. Honestly, none. Zero. There are no freedoms that you have in the West, in America, that are not available elsewhere. And there is freedom elsewhere that you do not have in America. Like I said, the average Indonesian villager has more freedom than the average American citizen. That's just a fact. So, I mean, the real misconception not only is in the fact that I would challenge anyone to define for me what freedoms that you have. Like I said, what freedoms do you have in America that they don't have literally everywhere else? But they tell you all the time about how free you are, so that by implication, you will assume that every other country in the world is an oppressive tyranny and no one is able to do anything. And then, of course, you have the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans never leave that country, so they don't even know what it's like in any other country. They know what it's like in every other country only insofar as they imagine that their country is the best. And so every other country must be the converse of that. But the real misconception is that the Western civilization, so-called civilization, never did actually believe in freedom as the highest value. That's the reality that they don't even want you to know about. They never did believe in freedom as the highest value. This is just something that they tell you. It's just part of the sales pitch to convince you about how wonderful your society is. But this was never something that your so-called civilization ever cherished. I mean, if you go back to the alleged philosophical roots of Western so-called civilization, to ancient Greece and so on, these philosophers that they always claim as their own and as their inspiration, Aristotle didn't believe in this. Plato didn't believe in this. The real foundation of Western belief has always been more authoritarian and classist than it was ever liberal and democratic. They always believed in order and the security of the status quo above liberty and freedom. Always. They always believed in power being held by the elite. If you've read these philosophers, you'll know that. And if you've read, whether you're talking about the Greek philosophers, the Enlightenment thinkers, or the so-called founding fathers, this was their position. That's the lineage of thought behind the modern Western power structure. They just sell to the public this idea about freedom, because anyone with any sense knows that you can't actually even base an organized society on liberty and the so-called sovereignty of the individual. Everyone who thinks about it for more than 5 seconds knows that. If your society was actually based on what you claim it was based on, well, that's a Ted Kaczynski mentality. Everybody doing their own thing, everybody living off the grid. You know, how long would your society even last like that? The whole of America would be like the backwoods of Montana. But they don't even respect you enough. The government, the power structure, doesn't even respect the population enough to tell you that obviously you can't base a society on freedom and liberty, unchecked freedom and liberty. Instead, they have to tell you about how free you are, and they just gaslight you and feed into your fantasies, because they think that you're like children.
And 45 days to caucus time in Iowa. You start it all.
And remember, I said it before, I kept you there, nobody else. I kept you there. Not your governor, not anybody. I kept you there. And you're going to be there for a long time. You're going to be number one. You're going to be first in the nation.
You like children. They don't even want you to understand the real system that you live in. That's why they don't even educate people properly. I mean, that's why you can see these videos where, excuse me, that's why you can see these videos online where people are asking random Americans on the street basic questions, you know, like name a country that starts with the letter B. And they say, you know, shoes. They really have no idea the level of idiocy that's being imposed upon the public.
If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is
Why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Is astronomical. So you have the freedom to do what? What? I mean, I really want to know. Someone tell me, what is the freedom that you have in America, excuse me, or in the so-called West that you don't have everywhere else? You'll probably say the freedom to criticize the government, the freedom to protest. They only give you the freedom to protest in a democracy when they're not actually giving you democracy. I mean, think about it. Think that through. Why would you even need to go out in the streets and demand this or that if you have a democracy? If you have political institutional mechanisms for having your demands met, for being represented in policy, why should you protest? Why would you even need to do that? Because your government ignores you. That's why. So your freedom to protest, your freedom to criticize the government, just means that you have the freedom from being listened to. You have the freedom from being listened to. Because, you know, historically, this is unpopular opinion, but it's not even an opinion, it's a fact. Historically and statistically, authoritarian governments are actually much more responsive to protests than democracies are. In fact, democracies have actually just perfected the exclusion of the population from policy-making decisions. They've perfected it. The whole so-called democratic mechanism, the whole structure is actually designed to completely marginalize the population. And one of the things that has happened over the years, excuse me, one of the things that happened over the years is what we've talked about many times, what I talk about on the channel many times, which is the transfer of real power out of the public sector into the private sector. So they've got you busy right now thinking about the election, thinking about who's going to win, and we have to vote for this or vote for that, or vote against this or vote against that. When real power is completely removed from that whole process. But they've got you completely distracted from where real power is, because they've convinced you about how free you are and about how democratic your society is, which just actually, in real practical terms, means that you have no power whatsoever. You have no voice whatsoever. That's why it doesn't matter one bit when you go out and protest in the street. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter any more than you putting your vote in the ballot box. It is equally insignificant to what will happen in terms of policy. But you think that you're free. This is the misconceptions are so massive. And like I said, it begins from the misconception of thinking that your so-called civilization ever believed in freedom and liberty and democracy and so forth. They never believed in that. And if you actually read as I say, the Greek philosophers, if you read the Enlightenment thinkers, if you read the Founding Fathers, they never believed in that for 1 minute. And so you actually have the system that they wanted you to have, that you have the system that they believed in, but you have a very, very different system than the one that you believe in, the one that you think you have. It's completely different, but it's the one that they always intended it to be, which is the power being held by the elite and the population being completely marginalized and disempowered.
We're all in the same bag, in the same boat. We suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation, all of them from the same enemy. The government has failed us. You can't deny that. Anytime you live in the 20th century, 1964, and you walking around here singing, "We shall overcome," the government has failed.
The reality isn't that you get leaders who can't tie their own shoes. You get people who can't tie their own shoes. Population imagines are the leaders, but those are not the leaders. There's no country. I mean, there's no, like I've talked about many times, you have people in the United States, let's just go with the United States for now, who have tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars on the line when it comes to what American policies are going to be. They have so much at stake. If you imagine for a second that they're going to leave the decision for who's going to make policy up to the general public, you're out of your mind. And if you think that the one that the general public selects is actually the one who determines what the policy is, you're out of your mind. I mean, even if you look at just just look at the actual system that they have in the United States, and you'll see that they have done everything they can to prevent there being any kind of democracy in the United States. This is what I'm trying to explain. They never believed in democracy. They never believed in this because it's a very bad idea. No one ever believed in this. They believed in democracy in terms of who gets to select who the leader will be, that should be pulled from a very small group of people. It's not unlike a sort of a shura system where you have a group of people who have a specific expertise and a specific stake in the society and so on, making the decision about who's going to rule. The Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, the people of influence in the society, decide who will be the leader. That is the system that they always believed in, and that's the system that they have. But it's the public who've been made to believe that they're participants in the decision-making process and in the selection process.
Gentlemen, I can't bring this bill to the floor. I'll get killed. There is no way Congress will let March Worldwide Global put "Made in America" on goods made in China.
Why not? The name of the town in China is America.
Oh, now, technically it's America.
My brother and I are job creators. And because of that, we're also candidate creators.
My hands are tied.
It's a real pity, isn't it, Wade? Yeah. By the time we're finished, half your district will think you're a Marxist, and the other half will think you've got every D.C. Craigslist hooker on speed dial.
You simply are not. And if, as I say, if you actually believe that these people whose influence in society and whose stake in what policies are going to be, if you imagine for a moment that they're leaving that up to you, well, you're out of your mind. And even if you, as I say, if you just look at the actual system, you have what? Roughly 10 swing states, so-called swing states in America. That means that your election is going to be determined by about 40 to 50 million people. Not 300 million people. The result of the election is going to be determined by about 50 million people, 40 million people, something like this. And then, of course, you've got the Electoral College anyway. So it's all a charade. It's all a charade. And all the only thing that can keep it going, and the reason that they want to keep it going is particularly so that you never look at where the real power is. So that you always think that you're a participant and it's power of the people and so forth. Precisely because they have disempowered you, and probably because they should disempower you. And that's what they've always believed. So no, it's not that that democracy is the best system for the West, or it's the best system that we have, and so forth. They never thought it was, and that's why they don't have it. And they've done everything possible because they did put it on paper. They did put it on paper, so they found every means of avoiding it. They found every means of evading it and preserving, or rather, rescuing power from ever being at risk of democracy actually breaking out in the United States.
Because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump.
Well, I mean, you know, if you think about the fact that, I mean, like theoretically, if you believe in democracy, and Americans, like I was saying, if you ask them what their freedoms are, what their rights are, that are so much better than anyone else, then you have this concept of government of, for, and by the people. And theoretically, the myth goes, you know, that someone who's a very average, normal, sort of lower class, blue collar American can potentially be president of the United States. Well, that's, you know, that's as likely as you it's even less likely as you becoming a Olympic gold medalist. You haven't had an American president who was not a millionaire since Harry Truman. I think more than half of the U.S. Congress, there were millionaires, and the rest of them, the other 49% or 48% or whatever of the U.S. Congress, they're in the top 5% income bracket in the U.S. And they were before they were politicians. You have to be rich already. You already have to be rich if you want to be in government, if you want to be a politician, if you want to be a so-called representative of the people. You have to be someone who has nothing in common whatsoever financially with the rest of the population. You don't have a chance. I mean, look at what's going on now just with Jill Stein and how impossible. Everyone knows she's not going to win. Everyone knows she can't even get on the ballot in several states. This is your democracy. It's supposed to be like if you had like, say, like Sister Nisa talking about South Africa. South Africa is a far more democratic system than America. Far more democratic. In reality, it's more democratic than the United States. You have multiple parties. Even Malaysia or Indonesia, you have multiple parties that can run for office, and you don't need millions upon millions of dollars to run a campaign. I mean, you need hundreds of thousands of dollars just to run a campaign on the local level. Forget about on the national level. If you're running on the national level, you need millions. You need tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Because again, this is an example of who's actually making the decisions, who's actually making the policy. It's the people who've got the hundreds of millions and the billions of dollars. And the reason why they even bother spending that money on controlling your politicians is because, as I say, they have a much higher stake in the way policy is going to go. And there is no way in the world that they're going to leave that to the rank and file American citizen to decide what policy is going to be, or who is going to be the one who's in the office to determine what policy is going to be. They don't even trust the one that they put in office to be the one to determine what policy is going to be. They have to tell him or her, dictate to them what the policy is going to be. They have to make sure that we can buy them off completely to make sure that they will be loyal to our interests. And like I've talked about many times, America does nothing but interfere with democracies, or with elections rather, all around the world. Since 1945, they've interfered in dozens upon dozens of elections. What makes you think that they're not controlling the outcome of the election in the United States? Why, that's not intelligent. If you think that they're not running the election in the United States and determining what the outcome is, when they determine the outcome in country after country after country all around the world, you think that that they have a hands-off policy in the most important election? The election that has the most impact on their interests, but they're making sure that they determine the outcome of an election in Micronesia, but they're not going to bother about what the outcome of what's the outcome of the election in the United States. No, this is just very foolish. You're incredibly naive and gullible if you think that there's any conspiracy theory aspect to the most powerful interests in the United States controlling the outcome of an election, when we know that they control the outcome of elections in country after country after country, and always have. But somehow you think that they have a hands-off policy in America. Well, that's just not intelligent, I'm afraid.
A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you because you're a chump.
And I've talked about it many times. You have the freedom to be irrelevant. You have the freedom in trivialities. You have the freedom in frivolous things. Nothing of any importance. If you actually try to get involved in anything important, if you try to, as I say, actually educate yourself about the power structure and the system and be involved in that in any way, well, you'll be shut down very quickly. But you have all the freedom in the world to do completely counterproductive, self-destructive, and immoral things, precisely to keep you basically in a kind of almost a catatonic state intellectually and spiritually and morally, so that you'll never actually take life seriously. They don't want you to take life seriously. They want you to keep feeding your desires, your base desires, your urges, your and what have you. Then there are so many reasons for that. I mean, just for capitalistic reasons, it's good to train people to have no impulse control, so that they do all of this impulse buying and so forth. And you look for meaning and purpose and so on as a consumer, and as seeking pleasure, seeking gratification and so on. All of these are very unserious approaches to life. So they want you to take a very unserious approach to life because they never want you to get in the way of important people doing important things.
In the South, they're outright political wolves. In the North, they're political foxes. A fox and a wolf are both canine. Both belong to the dog family. Now, you take your choice. You're going to choose a northern dog or a southern dog. Because either dog you choose, I guarantee you, you'll still be in the doghouse. This is why I say it's the ballot or the bullet. It's liberty or it's death. It's freedom for everybody or freedom for nobody.